Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of FORGECAST, a Warhammer 40k Warpforge podcast. I am joined, as ever, by my partner in crime, the Ecclesiarch. How are you, sir?
Doing great, BJ. Doing great. Thank you for having me once again.
Well, we are both a little bit giddy. It's like Christmas Eve for us here because on this episode we got something pretty special for you guys. We are basically going to be doing something a bit different on this episode. So in the next episode, we'll come back to our card of the week and our kind of usual kind of meta breakdown. But we are very blessed and fortunate that Everguild have asked us to reveal the brand new reinforcement drop. I think I've got that right. It's not an expansion. It's a reinforcement drop.
It's a reinforcement.
Yes. Okay. So the expansions will be when we get whole new factions, the town, we get all that sort of stuff. But the reinforcement drop, like we just had one with the Tyranids, and we have another one upon us, guys. And today we are, I believe, for the first time that any of the Warpforge gamers are going to see, we're going to reveal 10 brand new cards and a new Warlord for you. And Ecclesiarch and I are going to get into some big discussion about what we think about those cards. You're going to get our kind of initial reaction, what we love about them, where we see opportunity to kind of use these cards and where we see them fitting in, and any kind of like limitations and things that we're not sure about. Now, what we're going to do is once we've had the discussion, this is just for fun, guys. Okay, we are each of us going to give our personal rating on each card out of 5. We weren't sure whether to review them or not. Of course, we haven't played with them yet, so this is just our initial impression. In a month's time, when we've had a chance to play with it, our opinions probably will change and could well change, right? So take it for what it is. But we're going to give a very simple review score of 1 to 5. 1 is that we think it's a terrible card. 2 is like it's pretty bad. 3 is going to be like it's an okay card. It's definitely usable and in the right situation, sort of situational. 4 is it's a really good card, and 5 is like it's going to be a meta defining in every deck. So that's kind of like a rough scale. Ecclesiarch will give his and I'll give mine, and we'll kind of use that to as we go through each card to kind of review them. So that is what we're going to cover today. Anything before we jump into the first card then, Ecclesiarch? Anything that I've missed there? Anything you want to add before we jump in?
Yeah, so gentlemen, don't forget, as always, this is going to be our personal opinion. Don't just go jumping right in and wasting your first legendary wild card just because maybe we said that this is going to be a good card. Who knows, right? We won't know until we try. This is going to be just speculation, so hold your horses.
Yeah, and we've already done crafting guides for the existing cards, so if you are a new player, you want to check that stuff out as well. But for those of you who've been playing the game for a while like us, this is obviously exciting. It's new cards, new content. And before we jump in, I just want to say a massive thank you to Everguild, obviously themselves, for trusting us and for giving us this opportunity to kind of bring this information to you. I just think it's really cool that we've done that, and it's going to be a lot of fun sharing this kind of stuff with you guys. So, with that said, most of you know. If you don't know, I'm gonna keep saying expansion. I think we need like a jar that we have to put money in every time we say expansion and not reinforcement drop. But with this reinforcement drop, we focus on one faction, and this time it is the turn of the Goth Clan. So the Orkz get some love, and so what I'm gonna do is just share on the screen. Give us a second.
By the way, BJ, keep putting that money in that jar, and maybe after a couple of times you say expansion, we'll actually have the money to buy the reinforcement.
Exactly. I like your thinking. I like your thinking. Now, before we jump in, can you see that okay, Ecclesiarch, on the screen? Can you see that?
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely.
Okay, boys. So the first card and the Warlord that is coming in this expansion is Warboss Gordrang himself. Now, I want to just check that I'm actually getting this right, because I believe that the name of the expansion is going to be Godrang's Gitstompas. Yeah,
Original.
Godrang's Gitstompas. Now that is a mouthful. I keep saying it. Godrang's Gitstompas. So this is Warboss Godrang himself. For some of you will be kind of familiar with him in the lore. So I think we sort of got a sneak peek earlier in the week, didn't we? Of just the grot And people thought, oh, is it going to be a Grot War boss? But obviously that was a zoomed in piece of the art, and now we can see that he's actually a huge orc. Mega Nob, sorry. I believe he's like a war boss of the Mega Nobs. And yeah, donning a piston-driven suit of incredibly durable mega armor, Gordrang makes a mockery of his foes' tactics and terrorizes their ranks. So he's a 35 health a legendary war boss, so you will need to craft him with a legendary card, so that's something to consider. He has the pretty standard 2 melee attack, 2 range. Obviously, we have a few lords that have different values there, but this guy has 2/2, and he has the talent huge chopper. So before we look at the huge chopper and the talent, anything to comment on immediately there?
He looks pretty cool.
It
That's
does look.
for sure.
I think.
I really like the art.
Yeah.
It's kind of on the preview it seemed kind of cartoony, but now that I look at it, I really like the art. It's pretty cool.
I always love when you know how like the art kind of overlaps the border frame, and I just think that this guy in particular with the huge chopper, like coming off the corner there, and even the grots kind of like the fire from the gun like coming off the it just it looks I don't know it just looks really cool for me.
It
Really,
does. It
yeah,
does.
yeah. So good job on the artwork. So shall we look then at
Absolutely.
what the talent does? So okay, so the huge chopper it costs 2 energy, so again pretty standard there. And it says your warlord gains +2 melee attack and concussive this turn. What do we think about this then as a warlord power, Ecclesiarch?
Are you ready for another orc meta, boy? This is insanely strong. This is insanely strong for a couple of reasons. Like, I'm not sure if I could say that this is like in need of adjustments right away or something, but this is gonna be very powerful. This is gonna be very powerful for a couple of reasons. Now, first of all, if he goes first, he's just gonna bash you for 4 damage and stun you on turn 1. So that's already a very strong turn 1. And if you got Makari on 3 energy, this guy's for 3 energy, every turn he can deal 5 damage to you. That can be devastating because the other day I was playing against Iliac, Zephyr Blade, who got Dance of Death on him. And with his hero power, he was just going face for 5 damage per turn. And I just lost because, it was too much. So this guy is going to be very strong. He's going to be very powerful on aggro because he's going to compensate for the nerfs that the Propakili basically received. And perhaps the Propakili nerf also had this guy in mind, because imagine that with old Propakili. Absolutely crazy. And on top of that, he's also concussive, so he's going to stun the target. So not only will he be able to remove 4 health units for 2 energy, which is massive, on top of that, he's just going to be able to stun the stuff, right? So let's say, for example, this is going to be so disgusting against the Eldar because he's basically going to be able to shut down your Dance of Death completely. So yeah, I would say this is going to be a very powerful warlord. He's going to be top. And I would say I'd give him like 5 stars right off the bat. I just can't wait to play this guy. Very strong, very powerful.
So let me. I've got some thoughts too, but let me just sort of like pick on a few things you said there. So how good do we think the concussive aspect is? Because I think it was the last episode of the podcast, right, where we had started to talk about the heal card that gives concussive for a turn, and we'd started to say that actually we think that might be one of the more powerful effects, right?
Absolutely. And don't forget, like, the thing with the concussive was that I remember, I think it was in alpha or beta, when you would use the heal on your warlord, I think it permanently gave him concussive or something, and it was nerfed like right off the bat because it was way too strong. And I think this kind of borders that, because your warlord is basically gonna have concussive on almost all your turns. It's a very strong thing because permastan is crazy. All of you guys who play like Horus Heresy Legions, you will remember Mortarion, you will remember Caleb Decima or Marius Virosian. Bro, the permastan warlords that we had in legions were so hard to deal with, especially if at some point we have duelist warlords, like warlords that just play with the warlord and go face. This guy's gonna shut them down. It's very powerful. Overall, like the only beef I have with this warlord right now is that I think he's kind of making Zaxxtra kind of useless. So the only thing that I would like to tell Everguild, like to keep in mind, is when this guy releases, nobody's gonna play Zaxxtra because he's just the better Zaxxtra. Zaxxtra getting armor doesn't matter that much when it comes to getting 2 attacks. So that's the only problem I have with this warlord currently.
Okay, so let me. I mean, I echo most of what you've said. I'll give my score at the end, but I want to kind of like just go into just a little deeper, if you like, and just scratch the surface a little bit more with him. So one of the first questions that I kind of had, and we can sort of think this through a little bit now, is like, how does this guy play in a kind of aggro beatdown type of deck? How does he play in a more mid-range deck, and how does he play in a control deck? So let me just go into that a little bit with what I mean. So we've said before that in Warpforge it's really difficult to play as a control player because you can never clear the board, right? You've always got your enemy Warlord there to kind of come back at your units. And so what I like about this card from a control perspective is he can keep locking down your opponent's Warlord, which means that he can't take out your units. Imagine you're playing Swarmlord, for example. I could see you going huge Chopper, hitting him with the range attack. So you're doing the 2, only taking the 1, but now he can't attack you back for 3 to clear. You've completely disabled like the main control tool that he has. So there's something there like just mechanically that he's like really interesting. I haven't fully thought that through, but there's something there that just, because I know the Orks are probably one of the better factions for control, right? We got the Will of Gorks, we got the hard removal stuff. I'm kind of interested in how does this work from a control point of view. Now that brings me on to kind of like one of the big weaknesses. So I think the big weakness of this guy is he doesn't have card draw, right? So when you're talking about an aggro deck, if we think about Uriel, for example, one of the reasons why Uriel suddenly became such a good aggro deck is that A, he got an ability that gave him an extra card, which I think you identified really early as a key component of an aggro deck. But also remember, at the very same time, they got that buff to, I've forgotten the name of the card, that gives them draw 2 cards for only 2 energy, whereas in every faction it's 3. So Uriel had made up for that weakness, right? And the card draw. Now, if you're playing aggro, you're generally playing low to the ground stuff. There's nowhere to draw. We know in the past, like your Orc aggro deck was Grupp, for example, and Grupp could kind of draw and refill the hand. So if you play an aggro deck with this, I could see you kind of like running out. And so it's kind of led me to the kind of, and again, tell me what you think of all this in a minute, but it's kind of led me to think that what this guy could actually be is the best sort of like mid-range Orc Warlord, in that obviously he can really turn on the beatdown when he needs to, but I think the way you'd end up probably building it is more of a good curve tempo deck, because if you go too aggro and too low to the ground, you're going to run out of cards. And the other thing with that is, usually in an aggro deck, you probably don't want to use your Warlord power every turn early, right? Because you're trying to like develop the board with like cheap minions and kind of put as much damage as you can until the opponent takes over control, and then you finish off with the spells and the thing. So it kind of makes me think that this guy's going to be more like a real mid-range boss, where we're going to need a really good curve, so it doesn't matter so much about card draw because you're kind of drawing into your bigger minions. What do you think to that?
All right. I'll give you my opinion very short, and then let's move on, not to blue ball the people too much. So basically, I like your reasoning, BJ, 100%. However, this is going to be an aggro warlord. I'll tell you one reason for that. HHL, Kabanda, aggro. Kabanda was a 3 damage warlord in HHL with no card draw whatsoever. He was an aggro warlord. And now he even starts with 1 less card. It's a technical nerf to DG that there. Heresy players will know. He still works as aggro. The extra damage that this guy gets is just going to carry him through, because like first 2 turns, he will already deal either 8 damage to you or 9 damage if he gets Makari. he's just gonna be beating you down every single turn, and then just at some point he's just gonna drop the bikes and just destroy you. But he can definitely work as a control and mid-range warlord, but I think aggro is gonna be very prominent.
It's really interesting as we get through the rest of the cards. There might actually be a deck within this expansion that counters what you just said as well. So we'll come back to that. All right, cool. All right. So overall score out of 5, what are you giving it?
5.
You're giving it a 5. I think I'm gonna give it a 4. Just simply because I don't think that playing this in the first 3 turns is a good thing. I think you'll end up behind tempo if you do that. And maybe the first turn, I can obviously see that, but after that, I don't think you're going to be. And then I'm like, well, we're not drawing. I don't know. I still think it's going to be very good. Don't get me wrong. And like you say, much better than Zagstruck. But I'm going to say 4. I think it's going to be a good card. I don't know if it's better than Gruck, but it's good for sure. Okay, cool. All right. So next up, we have got the Crumpa da Gits. Now, I know you have got some thoughts on this one. Crumpa da Gits, very simply, is a 2 energy stratagem, and it says all troops you deploy this turn gain flank. What are your thoughts?
This is basically a cheap Orc Nob. There are reasons why I really like this card. It's some people might think maybe this is what's gonna compensate for the Green Horde nerf, because now you can combo the Orc Nob without you can combo without the Orc Nob, so less energy.
Yeah.
But the main thing that is for me here is I could see some vehicle action with this and some stuff like that, because if you make certain vehicles cheaper with MechBoy, or use the Orc reduction card on, let's say, a Knight or a Gorkanaut or something. Now, the Gorkanaut is 9 energy, right? So now, with 9 energy, and if you got counterattack, you could drop a Gorkanaut with flank, which would be pretty friggin' scary, if you ask me. That's like one thing. And on top of that, I could also see a Commando working on with this or something. Like, there's some things that this is going to enable. This is going to enable you to play some bigger cards with this, which is going to be pretty good. And you can still use this as a Orc Nob, like an Orc Nob replacement. And don't forget, on top of that, like I've already told EG about the whole Rock Invasion thing where it never drops an Orc Nob. I don't know if it's intended or not. They said they're going to pass it over to the team. Maybe they're going to change it. Maybe they're not going to change it. Maybe the idea is that it should not drop an Orc Nob. But, I mean, at 12 energy, you could use this plus Rock Invasion, and everything would have flank. So it's like, that's also a thing. This is a very flexible card. This is overall very good. I don't know if you need to have 2 copies of this in your deck. I would probably place 1, unless we really get a specific deck on that. I think this is just a very nice utility cheap card. I like cheap cards like this. I think cheaper cards that do a simple thing are almost always better than an overloaded high cost card. Almost always. I'm giving this card I would say I'm giving this card a 4, not a 5. The only reason I'm not giving a 5 is that this is not something that I would include 2 copies of in my deck, because on Warlords that struggle with card draw, and there's all the Orc Warlords except Gruck, this might end up as a dead card in your hand. So I would say 4. Very good card overall. Definitely worth getting as soon as possible.
With Rock Invasion, do you know if the units count as deploy? You know, it says all troops you deploy this turn.
Considering that this is a similar game to Heresy, it should work like that. Plus, Tomb World and whatchamacallit, Chronomancer works like that. So I think it should. Like if Chronomancer is there and you deploy something from Tomb World, it gets a flank, so it should work.
Okay. Yeah. It's interesting, right? Because it was so. First of all, it's a common card, so I quite like that. You know, it's you know, if you're a beginner, you'd be able to pick this up dead quick. I think the only thing for me is it does make me think of other cards that we already have, right? So we already have cards in almost every faction, which for two, I think one or two energy, we can give a unit flank, right? So the way I looked at this card is I was sort of comparing it to those cards. Now, first thing with those cards is I don't know about you, but I automatically looked at those and went, these cards are brilliant. And then the more you play the game, you realise actually they're not, because what you're essentially doing is taking like let's say it's a 5 drop that you want to play. It's actually a 7 drop because you're paying the extra 2 to give it flank, and then you sort of think, is it actually worth 7 energy? Plus, you've got to have those 2 cards in hand. So those cards don't really get played, as you and I know, especially in the meta. And so I'm like, well, so what's the difference here? Well, the first difference is it says all troops. But then I started to think, look, if we're spending 2 on this, how many other troops can you play? Yes, okay, on the Green Horde or maybe Rock Invasion, as you've just pointed out, but then that's turn 12. Like, but outside of that combo, like, how many more units can you play when you're already 2 energy down? So I liked your point there about how vehicles can get cheaper, and maybe that's one way to cheat this out. But I actually don't think it's that easy to get certainly more than 2 units. I mean, if you get 2 units and this, you're probably doing really well. I have a feeling that this might be one of those cards that looks ridiculously broken at first, but then it kind of isn't. Like, it's not to say it's bad, but I don't know that it's as good as possible. I reckon overall, I'm gonna give this a 3 at the minute, but it could definitely change. If people find a way to kind of break it a little bit, then I could see this going up to a 4 for me. But I'm gonna kind of think I'm gonna put this out at a 3 at the minute.
Absolutely understandable. I do agree with the point that's there. There are some cards that look very good and then end up being not so good. So, yeah, this could be that for sure. I guess time will tell. Because don't forget, like, there's also, but you know what another funny thing is? Orcs already have a card called Scragum, right? Which is already to give a flank to a troop. So this is basically gonna invalidate Scragum, I guess.
Yeah, does that have a secondary effect though?
Well, I mean, Vanguard on a vehicle.
Vanguard
Yeah,
on a vehicle.
why would you give Vanguard to something you're flanking with? I don't get it. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, this might be a card that
Yeah.
looks good on paper, but something tells me there's gonna be some shenanigans. But
I think,
we'll see,
yeah,
I guess.
I think you might be right. So one thing we should say before we move on is that obviously any further troops that we now look at, we should also consider this card, right? So any further troops that we look at, if we'd played Crumpa to Gits, could potentially have flank, and we can kind of factor that into how good we think they are as well. Okay, so next up we have the Stick Bombs Boy. Can you see this one? Does that come up now? Yeah. Oh. Yeah, so what Godrang lacks in subtlety is more than made up for by brute savagery and resilience of this horde, who live to rampage and hurl themselves into every fight they can find. So what we've got here is, for 3 energy, we have a 2 melee, 4 range, 3 health, not great for 3, and it says Tide 1, stun enemies attacked. What are your thoughts?
Trash.
Moving on.
Yeah, like, I get it. There's like a combo with the previous card. Sure, that's fine, but I'd rather take a normal Stormboy over this guy any day, because even though the Stormboy has less damage, let's say I don't get the combo, I can still deploy the Stormboy, and I can deploy 2 Stormboys for 4 energy, while this guy right here, I need to pay 6 energy to deploy 2 of these. This is like the Barbagaunt, you know? This is like the typical trash vanilla card, for me at least. Maybe there's something I'm not seeing here, but in general, I know that EG loves cards like this. So this is a trap. I'm never going to play this. 1 star, not even 1. This is a 0. If there was a 0, I give it 0. It's crap.
You're giving it 1. You're giving it 1, 0/1.
I like the art though.
Wow.
It's pretty cool.
Okay, so let me try and redeem it a little bit then. So the first thing I would say about this is, like in some CCGs, you have cards that are just better as like one-offs rather than two-offs. And for me, this feels like a one-off first of all, if we were going to consider it. And one of the main reasons for that is this is not a card you want to play on turn 3. Right, this is definitely not a card you want to play turn 3. You want to play this card, generally you want to play it later and try and make use of Tide. I think you kind of hinted at it, but the previous card that we just showed, with this being able to flank, or don't forget we've also got Orc Nob. It also will be discounted to 1, meaning you can get 2 of them once you've played the Green Horde, right? So you could, there's this combo there, right, with the Orc Nob and the Green Horde, which is pretty good. But what I think is the hidden thing about this, okay, and it's
Go
subtle.
on.
It's I'm not sure how this works, but it says stun enemies attacked. Now, is this like the Tyrannid Venom Throat, which is that if we select it and attack something, it gets stunned, but if it's your turn and you attack the stick bomb, does your unit still get stunned?
Nope.
Right. Okay. Because if it did, I would have said it was much better, and that might have been the hidden thing.
Yeah.
But if it is purely only when we select the card to attack, if that's what it means by enemies attacked, then yeah, I think even though I'm trying trying to redeem it a little bit, I'm kind of gonna say that I think I'm gonna say. I think I'm going to give this a 2. I think it is a bad card overall, but I do think it has some synergies there, right? Like, you've got the previous card, and you've got the Orc Nob, and you've got the Green Horde. So I guess it's another card we've now got to consider that comes out in Rock Invasion as well, hasn't it? So, like, I do think it's got enough synergies, like, to do something in some games. But it's bad. It's health 3 for 3 is probably the thing I don't like most about it. So I'm gonna go with the 2 on the stick bomb boys.
I think they should. I think what they should do is remove the ability and just make it concussive, and it would be nice.
Yes, yeah. If this had concussive, because then even if like that's why I was thinking it's like even if a bigger better unit just clears this. But then it's stunned, or if the enemy Warlord clears this, but then it's stunned in its next turn, it can't do anything. And I think that's great value you've got then. And actually, I like that card design. That's pretty cool.
And plus, you could get it from Rock Invasion. So yeah, I think they should give it concussive.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, so I gave it a 1, you gave it a 2. Fair enough.
Next up, we have the Rocket Boy. The deafening loud noise scattering of debris over a wide area of atomization of anyone too close to make explosive and irresistible lure to many orcs. Is it just me, or does this one just look a bit different? Like, it almost, like, the artwork just kind of, like, looks, I don't know, like, it just looks,
It looks like it's its only redeeming quality.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, you gave the last one a 0. What do we think about this? It's unstable, so we're exploding now, like vehicles. And it comes with Blast 2, which is good, but it's 4 energy. You're only getting the 4 health. You've got 4 range attack and 2 melee. That's poor stats, isn't it?
This is terrible stats because like it's understated. It doesn't have any stats that's over. It's not overstated at all. Like there's no 5 value there, and on top of that, his melee attack is also crap. Like it has worse stats than let's say. Like always, my argument is going to be the existence of the whatchamacallit. What's that thing called? Triarch Praetorian. 3 energy, 3/3/4. Right? It's a great card. Don't touch that card, EG. It's a great card. And what I'm saying is like Triarch Praetorian rivals this with stats, and this guy on top of that has unstable. Why? Why do I need to take 3 damage potentially to play this?
Yeah.
What is this?
I think that's the kind of point, isn't it? That the Triarch Praetorian, when it dies, leaves a remnant a chance of coming back. Whereas when this guy dies, he like takes 3 health off your Warlord and kills Makari or whatever. So
you know what I think? Yeah. You know what I think they should do? And EG, if they're listening, I'd like to give them a suggestion. There's a very nice little thing they added in Horus Heresy Legions. Like not recently, but it's like one of the more recent skills that they added. There's something called Ordnance. Ordnance basically is an ability on a tactic or a troop, which means that every time the said troop attacks a vehicle, they deal extra damage. So, for example, this has 4 ranged and 2 melee, right? If it had Ordnance too, it means that whenever this ranged attacks a vehicle, it's going to do 6 damage instead of for vehicle and structure, right? I think they need to implement that in Warpforge and stop like tank busters and rocket boys and shit like that. Like, it could definitely have ordnance, and it would be more interesting because in that case, if there's ever a vehicle meta, then you would see rocket boy being played because even the blast 2 would potentially deal extra damage to a vehicle. So that would be interesting. But as it stands now, this is just a bad card. I think this is a placeholder. The only time it's going to be good if you get it from Rock Invasion once again, so you can have a free blast 2 on the board. But other than there are so much better units for Orc Nob, like the Banner Nob and stuff like that. It's just way better, you know? So I think this one also gets a 1. This one also gets a 1. This is actually worse than the last one because last one at least has some combo potential. This is just...
Yeah. I agree. I think this is worse than the last one. But I am definitely going to build a fireworks blast meme deck because you know it's like I don't want to keep repeating the same point, but like when we're talking about orc infantry, you have to remember the green horde. So playing this guy for 2, you have to remember Orc Nob. So this being able to flank with blast 2 is a much bigger deal than just like drop it on the board, it does nothing and hope. And obviously the card we mentioned earlier, Crump the Gits, is like another Orc Nob, so another opportunity for this to flank. And I could see you building a really fun kind of like just blast them all kind of meme deck where basically like you said earlier about Goth Clan Orkz, and you run things like this, and also don't forget a little legendary in the orcs called Pyrotechnics, which means that this is actually doing blast 4 potentially. So you know, if for example you were ever in a kind of pure stealth meta or a go wide meta, then you might be able to still build something with orcs around it. But that's highly situational, right? We're talking about we'd be talking about a meta where the top 20 decks are all like, yeah, just the same thing, and we're all hard crafting. But other than that, I mean, I really think this is a 1 out of 5 for me. So
just reduce the cost to 3 and it's already a bit playable. Still
yeah.
not good. Even if they reduce the cost to 3 and remove the unstable, it's not gonna be that play. It's gonna be a good 3-drop, but it's not gonna be in every deck, even if you do that. But I definitely would suggest at least remove the unstable. It's thematic. I get it. He's got a big rocket shooter and it can blow up in his face, but he's a dumb orc. But like, it makes the unit very weak. The unstable just makes it not worth it. I would remove the unstable. All right, that's it.
So we're both giving that one a 1 then. All right, next up we have the Boss Nob from the Goth Clan. Okay, now this guy's interesting. He's a 5-drop, which is kind of good because I actually think that 5 energy is one of the weaker points of the Orc collection. There's not many great units there, so I'm happy about that. It is what do we call green? Is that rare?
That's a rare. That's a rare.
So we got a rare. Purple's epic, isn't it? So we got a rare card. So people should be able to craft this one, and obviously we can have 2 of them. It's a 5/3, so we're really looking at using the melee and triggering mob, and it's got 6 health, which is pretty good for 5. And it says mob give +1 health to adjacent units. And I believe with that wording, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I believe with that wording that includes your war boss. Yeah,
absolutely.
So what are your thoughts on this foul-tempered Boss Nob?
I like it. It's fine. It's not spectacularly strong, but I like it. Reason I like it is because the 6 health is pretty good. The 3 range damage kind of hurts. Maybe it could use cranking up to 4, I think. But the ability is really nice because you can get instant value from it when you attack with the Warlord. Like, you can drop it and attack, it's going to give 1 health. And if you have more than 1 unit on the board, it could basically trigger twice, giving health to everything, which is really good. I think overall, seems like a nice control tool. As you said, orcs really do suffer from 5 energy because I might be like not remembering right now, but I think the only big 5 energy drop they got is like McBoy, and they really didn't have anything 5 drop for a orc type of build. A build that which focuses on just having orcs there. This could actually be pretty nice. And don't forget, there's also the Green Horde, right? So if you play the Green Horde later on in the game, you could do some nice combos with it. Obviously, Green Horde is nerfed now, so it's not possible to do this very early. But I could see some combinations there. I could see some things. It's not, and don't get me wrong, people. I'm not saying that this is really good in terms of strength, but I like the card. I'd give it 3. It's an okay card for sure. Nothing spectacular, but not bad. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. I think it's. I mean, clearly, I think what I like about this the most is that it's got a design space. It's not just a vanilla. Like, it's got a unique slot, right? Like, the main thing I love is that more heal is good for control decks, and so it's giving us another tool. It's in the 5 space, which I think is weak, and also you can trigger that mob multiple times. One of the things being in Orkz, by giving adjacent units +1, I think when you've got vehicles that have unstable, getting +1 health is actually like getting +1.2. Like, I think it's a bigger deal because obviously when a death copter blows up, right? Like when it dies, it blows up and the unstable goes off. So if we can, imagine dropping this between death copters or something like that and getting multiple health triggers, it almost makes me think of like a bit like a spanner. When the spanner with the mob, when you're always trying to get multiple upgrades at once. I see it kind of being similar to that. And of course, as we've already said, that we can use this to kind of like keep our Warlord healthy as well. So having another health heal tool, which funnily enough, Orcs are becoming like the priest, the healing faction.
Yeah.
They're everything, aren't they? They're like the control faction, the aggro faction, the healing faction.
Orcs are the best.
They are definitely the best. I'm so excited and that's the thing. That's the main thing for me about this card. I would also agree. I would give it a 3 out of 5. I don't think it's a bad card. I don't think it's a great card. I think it's a situationally good card. But the main thing is I'm actually excited to use this. And as a deck builder, as a content creator, I'm really excited to like see what we can build, especially with some of the other cards we're going to show coming up. So let's get on to the next one. Okay, so now then, outside of the Warlords, we have got our first legendary card. Big Choppa Nob. Some Nobs prefer to fight wielding jaw-droppingly large choppers, ferociously swinging them into battle, inflicting mayhem and terror on their foes. Alright, so this big lad is a 6 energy cost legendary, so there's only one of them in your deck. He has concussive. We've already said how much we like that ability. When a friendly unit triggers mob, it triggers an additional time. It's got 7 health for 6, so it passes my health test there of being 1 higher than the than the actual energy cost. It's something I always look for in a unit. And it's got a whopping 7 melee and 4 range as well. What are your thoughts?
Oh, what a unit. I like this guy. I like this guy for a couple of reasons. First of all, he looks cool. Second of all, like something to think about for the future. When your unit triggers mob, and I'm sure with the scale of 40k and how many expansions EG is going to give us, like, I'm sure there's going to be a ton of expansions for Orcs down the line, maybe in a year or so or two. We're going to get a Warlord with mob. Like, don't even doubt it for a second. There's going to be a Warlord that's gonna have mob. Like, don't even, because there's literally a Warlord like that in Horus Heresy Legion. Space Wolves pack. It's mob, basically. It's just called pack. Lehman Russ. So there's gonna be a Warlord like that, and it's gonna be so good on that. But let's talk about the present. Even in the present, this is pretty good. 6 energy, 7/7. It already has higher stats than your typical one. This is really good. Now, for ranged attack may not be that great, but most of the flyers that are going to attack it with range for 6 energy or 5, they're not going to have enough to destroy this, which means they're going to get stunned. So unless this gets hard removed by something, this thing is going to end up stunning the enemy board, basically. So this is really good. On top of that, if it does survive, it can combo so well with the previous card because it can give so much health with that. It's not like, don't get me wrong, it's not like a crazy good card. I would say like in terms of being purely bullshit, the Neuro Tyrant was the better legendary in terms of like pure overstated strength. But this guy is much cooler and much more interesting than Neuro Tyrant. I would give it a solid 4 stars, not 5, not 5 because once again, I'm like you know that I've always keep yapping about this in all of my videos. In EG card games, instant value is the thing. It doesn't give any instant value, but that concussive is a big
The
deal.
concussive is
So
like a semi-instant. It's like a semi-instant value, isn't it? Because they, unless they're
yeah,
going to win the game, they've kind of got to deal with him, and then in dealing with him, they're going to trigger that effect of concussive, aren't they?
this might actually end up replacing Archel Gurk even, like in a sense that like this is this is like a soft front line even because when this gets played, the enemy just has to kill it. It's like the reason why I still carry what you call it, the crazy corn berserker guy and 5 energy Leo Vine Urkis. That's why I still carry him in my deck. It doesn't do anything, but it's a soft front line. You play it, the enemy just has to react. If they don't react, they lose. It's kind of the same thing. You play it, and the enemy just has to react, or then they risk you getting like it's like imagine you have this, they don't remove it, and you drop Mechboy Gazmech. That's two. That's like 4 times cost off a vehicle. Like it's gonna be crazy. So I think it's a solid 4. Solid 4. Not gonna be in every deck, but in most decks, people are gonna put this. I think. I don't know. What would you say?
Well, what you know, it says if a friendly unit triggers mob, it triggers an additional time. My question to you is, which mob effects in the Orc faction are we trying to target with this, right? Like, which mob effect are we trying to abuse with that additional time?
I would say the best ones to abuse would be either the new guy with the health. That's one.
And do you think that's why
You,
he costs 5 and this guy costs 6? Because the chances of them being on the board together then are more.
there's a higher chance. You
Mm.
could also, if this survives, drop a Death Dread, and it's gonna be very painful. You could even play it with you could even somehow play it with Spanner. You could end up doing something with that.
Mm.
It could, you know what else would be interesting? You know that stupid card they got, the Battle Wagon that reduces the cost of infantry. Uh, you could actually play in combo with that. The thing with this big Choppa Nob is that it actually has chances of surviving a turn. I think that's like one of the big deals here. It kind of makes playing like high cost orc cards viable. Like for example, and by viable I mean more interesting. I don't know if it's gonna be competitive, but like in terms of competitive and top 50, people might just play this for stats, nothing else. But the thing is, I think it makes some interesting things viable. Like drop a battle wagon or whatever it's called, and then with this you instantly reduce cost like so much. Or for example, with the Mega Knob, you could get like 2 Storm Boys per attack. So that Storm Boy, Slaga Boys. If you play like Shuta Boy, it could also end up being a lot of damage. So, but mostly I think what you'll be looking for is the 5 energy and the 6 energy together. Probably that's the deal.
Yeah. Yeah, because that was my thought. I went back and I just looked through the cards. I looked through the Orc faction cards that have mob, and I actually think the better ones are things like that have vehicle synergy. You know, you mentioned the spanner earlier and stuff, but it does.
Gazmech.
Yeah, gas mate. But I think the way it would have to work is you'd have to drop this guy. He'd have to survive, which is a good chance he could survive, but he'd have to survive, and then it'd be the next turn you'd drop the spanner or the Gazmech, and that's how you'd get this off. I actually think that's quite a situational ability, and right now I don't think there are that many mob effects that are really worth building around that. So I can see to your point earlier about in future proofing. I think this card is a card that will get better over time as more mob effects come into the game. I don't know about the Warlord getting one, that would be insane, obviously, but even just more mob effects, it's going to get better. But actually right now I think that ability is subpar. It's kind of like in the 2 out of 5, but I think because of his stats it kind of reminds me a bit of the Tyranid Prime. The Tyranid Prime, people don't run it for its ability, they just run it because it's like really solid, and actually for a 6 drop with concussive it has pretty solid stats. So I think overall overall, given what I've just said, for me, I'm going to give this guy a 3 out of 5. I think as Mob gets better, it will easily become a 4 out of 5. But I think where I am right now, if I was trying to just design a deck around this and think, what am I actually trying to abuse with that Mob, and how the hell am I going to pull all these combos off? I think I give this a 3. I think it's pretty solid, but I don't know that it's like a great card, you know. But it's pretty good. I'm definitely going to play it. I'm looking forward to using it. But yeah.
I'm gonna call it right now, BJ. We're gonna have a mob warlord, and we're also gonna have a warlord that's gonna have something like active ability, gain armor until your next turn, or something.
Yeah.
I'm calling that's gonna happen one day. Let's look back to this video when the time comes. Okay,
Yes,
let's
absolutely.
continue.
All right, so now we have not just a Copter, but a Megablasta Copter. And this lunatic Copter pilots hurl ahead of their warband to spy out enemy forces, a process that often finishes with a hazardous blast. Alright, so this guy is a 7 energy flyer. I think we've got one of those in the Space Marines, haven't we? Is it the Storm Talon?
Yep.
Same as the Storm Talon, it also has 7 health, which, being a flyer, I think having 7 is pretty good. It has, you know, for 4 and 5, so it's a little bit underpowered, I guess, for a 7 drop, but it has unstable, of course, but it does come with Blast 5. What are your thoughts?
Like as a standalone, it's a pretty trash card, but there's some room for combinations, like flanking into cost reduction, and you get a mini Hemlock. Right now, if we think about Hemlock, for example, which obviously has better stats, but also costs 8, right? So in order to get your 5 blast value out of Hemlock, you need to drop it for 8 energy, and you need to waste 3 Spirit Stones, right? Well, obviously Hemlock is like a way better card. I'm not trash talking it, but so what could we do with this? For you to get a similar effect to Hemlock, you have to pay 9 energy in total.
Yeah.
And on top of that, your range attack and health are still lower. There are some potential combos, like if you play once again for cost reduction, McBoy mob type of build, you could pull some things with this.
Yes.
But this is meant to be a combo piece. This is not meant to be. This is not meant to be something that is just played as a drop on curve. And when you get this in your hand, unless you get a reduction, this might end up being a bad card. Now, if you drop it for 5 energy with a counter attack, it might actually be a big deal, because 7 health is a big one. However, it's still kind of iffy. I don't know. I would still choose to play Archel instead of this. I would give it a 2. It's not too bad, as bad as like the Orc vanilla cards that they put there. Oh my god. But this is not that good. It's kind of underpowered, but it has the fun factor.
Oh yeah.
So it could be really fun using this in certain combos. It's like playing Death Copters, you know? Normal Death Copters are pretty fine, but they're the most fun when you actually combo them and get like a chain of Death Copters. So it's definitely a fun card. I would give it 4. I cannot give it 3 because this cannot just go on par with some of the previous cards. So this goes as a 2 for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, I'm also giving it a 2. I think it's really fun. I definitely think it's building out the vehicle theme, right? So if you want an all-vehicle DACA kind of theme deck, then it's great. I also think it almost has Vanguard again. Like, it almost has I drop this, even if I drop it on 7, it's like you either ignore it and have to win the game now, or essentially you have to deal with it because you don't want me attacking your board back with 5 blast, right? So it kind of has a soft Vanguard thing again, in that you've got to get rid of it. And actually, 7 health flying is not easy to get rid of. For some you know, like for Tyranids, for example, and Chaos, that's pretty difficult to get rid of. Less so for Eldar, but yeah. So I definitely think, and also the big thing, I guess, is that Orcs have a stratagem. So if you're level 20 on the Forge, you can play it, because it's a vehicle, you can actually get this discounted by 2. So playing this on 5 is actually pretty good. It's very good, sorry. Playing this on 5 is very good. But playing it on 7 is a bit meh, and you're probably not ever really going to get to use that blast. So overall, I'd say it's a bad card. I wouldn't say it's like terrible. I think it's probably still way better than the Storm Talon with that Blast 5. So I'm gonna give it a 2 as well. Yeah, cool. All right, let's move on. Now then, we have the Crumpar Claw. This saw-fisted bipedal mechanical abomination is a proficient is as proficient at terrorizing its foe as it is at dismembering them in a nightmarish scene of carnage. Love the artwork on this one. This guy looks cool. Very orcish, right? Crazy, dreadnought, out of control. What does he do? Well, he's 8 energy, so he's a big boy. He's coming down with a solid 8 health, 8 attack, 4 on the range. And he's unstable, which always makes me go, ooh, not like unstable. But it does say mob, gain +2 melee attack and 1 armor. And I have actually double checked with Everguild on this one, and that means that you get both of those effects every time mob is triggered. So this guy could end up seriously armored up, right? He could end up with like 20 attack and like 8 8 armor if if you've got a big mob going off. So yeah, what are your thoughts on the Crumpar Claw? Oh, I've lost you. I've lost your volume completely.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
I
there we go.
was saying let me make my soy face. That's why I made that face. So basically, let me make my consumer face because this is so good. This is so good. Like this is so good on so many levels. Let me tell you why I like this. First of all, armor is very good, right? We know that armor is annoying, and as soon as you drop it, you can give it the armor and +2. You can basically say that at minimum this is an 8 energy, 10, 8 armor 1. You can make it cheaper and you can play it on 6 energy with the counter attack. On top of that, oh Christ. You know what I'm thinking right now? You know that orc card that's 2 energy. I believe that gives a camouflage and 1 armor to your units. You could have such a disgusting combo together with this. So you essentially, if you have the counterattack for 8 energy, you could have a unit with 8, 10, 8 armor 2 and camouflage. That could be so disgusting. And then imagine if you follow up with the legendary card, and this guy just it's basically like getting a chaos unit. This is absolutely disgusting. If you could turn this into like a big finisher,
Yeah,
honestly,
it is. That's what it is,
I
isn't it?
yeah, I like it.
Mm.
Like, of course, I'm jesting a little bit when I'm saying let's make my consumer face because it's not that good, but it's pretty good. I like it. It seems fun. It seems pretty cool.
Mm.
It's an epic. Obviously, it's worthy of an epic. I'm not sure whether to give this a 4 or a 5, honestly. I think I'm just going to give it a 4 for now, but something tells me that this might end up being a 5 later on. People are going to figure out some way to make this a 5. It's
Wow.
it's just too good on paper. But for now, I'll give it a 4 because I think that once again, slow doesn't do anything, yada yada. As I always say, I have to honor what I say about that. I cannot be subjective, but I think this might end up being a 5. For now, I'm giving it a 4. What do you say?
I love this card. Like, regardless of how good it is, I love it. I love it on so many levels. Like, this is one of those cards where it's just gonna feel great. Like when you get it off, like as you know, I've built some decks with the Wraith Knight in, and the thing with the Wraith Knight is like it's not, it's certainly not a great card, but it feels great when you get it off, right? And I think this card is going to be like that times 100. It's just going to feel those wins. You can just imagine the replays and the highlights and the stuff from this. It's the memes, the pictures on the on the Discord with, hey, check out my like 25 attack, 12 armored Crumpar Claw. It's going to be like, who can make the biggest Crumpar Claw? That should be like the contest in the first month of this release, like who can make the biggest. I think this card is really super. I think it plays into the vehicle theme, so I can't wait to try it. There's some of those cards you mentioned, the camouflage, but also what's the one that blinds when you've got so many vehicles on the board that I really like.
Yeah.
So some of those cards come in. I mean, honestly, I think this is a really good finisher for like a mid-range build, and if we are thinking about dropping things like Rock Invasion, this is the type of card that you play big energy that can finish the game as an alternative. It can still obviously just be removed by hard removal. So that's definitely a downside. And at the end of the day, it costs 8 energy and does nothing on the turn it comes down. I mean, I know it can get buffed on the turn it comes down, but it's not affecting the board state, so that's still a bit of a problem. But again, you could drop this on turn 6, energy 6 with the stratagem, so like any benefits from, all the things we've said, like the flanking card, the Crumpa, the Gits, and all that sort of stuff, right? So yeah, I think this is going to be a good card. I don't know whether it is a 3 or a 4 for me. It's definitely not a 5 for me because it costs 8 energy. So even if it comes down and becomes like a 25/25 and kills me straight away, great. It was turn 8 at best, right? Like Tomb World on turn 8 ends the game too. We've got things like that. So I would say that you are going to have this card in your hand, looking at it, thinking, when am I going to get to play this? That's going to be common. So I don't see it being like a 5, but I think it's between a 3 and a 4. And I think it's probably going to end up at the 4, actually. I think you've I had it down as a 3, but I think you've convinced me that this card is going to be really, really good. So yeah, I'm happy to go with a 4. Oh, if I could give a 3.5, which I know we're not doing half points, but if I could, I think this might be one that I'd give 3.5. Just because you can have those turns where you play it and someone's hard removal and you go, okay, great. But yeah, overall, really cool. Great design, by the way. I'm really looking forward to building lots of different decks around it. And even, it's another one where I also think, even in an aggro deck, like you could imagine your aggro deck, your Gruck aggro deck, where you're drawing, and all the rest of your build is like up to curve 4, and then you just run 2 of these. And it's like,
yeah, that's pretty good.
We're not running out of value. We're going to win this. We're going to finish you off no matter what. So yeah, I think this is pretty cool.
Nice mob, by the way, mob synergy. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we got Dead Choppy. Now, this time we are talking about stratagem. It costs 3 energy, and it gives Bloodthirst to a friendly vehicle, or +2 melee attack to another friendly troop. So if it's not a vehicle, it's kind of got a backup thing. What do you think to this?
Oh my god. I like it and don't like it at the same time, because it gives me the Ravenous Hunter PTSD, but I think this is a better design than the Ravenous Hunter for sure.
Yeah.
Because Ravenous Hunter right now is how much energy? 4, right? Ravenous Hunter can affect multiple units and take you down from 30 HP, while this is only to a vehicle, so it's conditional. It's way more conditional, and it if it's not a vehicle, then it just gives you 2 melee attacks, so this can still work on your Warlord to deal a lot of damage. Like, if you're playing the new Warlord for 5 energy, you essentially have +4 damage, which is pretty nice. This is gonna combo really well with the previous card. It's going to turn it into a very dangerous finisher. Now it definitely has solidified itself on 4 for me, because that means you cannot leave that on the board, because on the first mob it's 10 damage, on the second one it's 12. So with Bloodthirst, it's already 24 damage per 1 turn. You cannot have 2 copies of this in your deck. Once again, it's going to destroy the curve. Because
you mean you wouldn't? You can have, right, because you've got the epic. You mean you wouldn't put 2 in?
Yeah, I wouldn't, because lack of card draw. Maybe Gruck can get away with it, but still, I see that they're pushing new gameplay types for the Orkz, which I really like, because this is something that people have been asking for. Now, in general, we can have like 3 types of Orkz after the expansion drops. You can play the Mob Orc, you can play the classic Rock Art control. You could play the aggro orc, and you could play the vehicle orc. So there's gonna be so much diversity in orc gameplay. I love it. The card itself is combo-y. It's fine. It's a 3 for me because it's a combo piece, and unlike Ravenous Hunter, it's very conditional. But I think this in general is a much better design than the Ravenous Hunter, in a sense that it has a condition. If you meet this condition, you can do it. So Orcs Plus don't have any like crazy unfair vehicles. If Orcs had like an invisible vehicle, yeah, then this could be pretty good, right? But for now, Orcs basically have just big vehicles, and you just focus on removing them. So, and they get punished with concussive. The Tyranids, on the other hand, are much more toxic in that sense because they drop an invisible unit, you cannot remove it, then they play Ravenous Hunter and you're dead. Very fun. So this is like a much better thing. I usually don't like still cards like this because it can be kind of toxic to play against, but I think this is one of the better versions because it has like a big condition.
Yeah.
For this is actually a much better design. I give it a 3.
Yeah.
What do you say?
Yeah, it's a much better design, right? There's no synapse cheese that you can do. It's only vehicles that can get the bloodthirst. It's not the units. Um, I agree that the last little guy we just looked at, the big guy, like he comes down and you're thinking, oh god, next turn he's got Jed Choppy. That thing's gonna do again some sick combos. But that's all like fun and bordering on memey. I think this feels a bit more to me like, like the chaos kind of finisher cards. Like it's more in that realm than the Tyranid one. Like the frenzy combos and the kind of murderous desires, and it feels somewhere in that range. I'll tell you where I do think it. I do wonder if this is opening up the new Warlord. Can you imagine the new Warlord with a kind of mid-range vehicle curve where you run this so that you've basically got these kind of two win cons. One is obviously to build a big Warlord, so you run your proper Achilles, you run his power and this, and then you've also got the vehicles that can bloodthirst too. So I'm thinking that might be one to test and to try. It also makes me think like, well, which vehicles would you target? So does it incentivize you to play things like killer cans a bit more? Where they've got the big 7/7 stats, for example, which don't get played a lot right now. Like, I'm trying to think outside of that, which vehicles would you be looking
I
to?
mean, you could still do it on a Grot tank if you manage to get the Spanner combo off and the Grot tank gets buffed, it can actually
Oh, of
just
course.
win you the
Yeah,
game
yeah.
instantly.
If
So
you've
that
if
could
you've
work.
already if you've already spanned, and maybe even the other thing about Bloodthirst is like things like Squig Buggy, right? Like getting double AOE out with the squigs as well. So that's another thing to think about. But yeah, overall, I agree. I don't think this is going to be like a toxic card by any chance. Like I don't think it's going to be like Ravenous Hunter toxic. That card's a 5 out of 5. This is more like a 3 out of 5. I agree with you. I think this is 3 out of 5. It's situationally good, but it's not going to be in every deck for sure. Cool. All right. Shall we move on to the next?
Absolutely.
Next up, we have got Stomp'em, and again, we are now talking about a stratagem. This one is 3 energy again. And essentially, this says give +1 melee attack to your units this turn and trigger their mob abilities.
I don't like it because it's a copy paste of the Codex teachings or whatever it's called from Ultramarines. It's basically the copy paste of that card with the change that Codex is the mob and ranged is a melee. And that card is much better than this card because when you play that card, it's free energy. You're essentially triggering Codex twice. While with Mob, there's no such type of combo. And even then, that card I don't consider to be a good card in the Ultramarines. Well, it's okay, but okay-ish. This is like this. I know they're trying to focus a Mob type of build, and I'm telling you, if one day we get a Mob Warlord and something like that, this card might become more prominent. And as like new things are added to this game, this card might actually become very interesting.
Yeah.
For now, it's a 4 for me. I'm gonna instantly rate it because it's not that original. It's not that good because currently you don't have a mob that is gonna insanely benefit from this, while you do have codexes that insanely benefit from it.
Yes.
And people still don't use that card. So why
Yeah.
would people use this, right?
Yeah.
But down the line, as the game becomes like has more content, this is gonna become better. For now, it's a 2.
Oh, so you're because I thought you said you were giving this a 4. So you're giving this.
Oh, sorry. I wanted to give it a 4, give it a 2.
Okay.
Not a 4.
I was about to say I think we're going to disagree on this one. Yeah, I think it's a bad card. I don't like this type of card design because for me it feels like a win more card, right? It's like, first of all, imagine I've got like, I don't know, 5 units on the board with mob abilities. Well, I've already won the game anyway, haven't I? Or I'm winning. So like, why am I? And then if I haven't got that, I'm either I have nothing on the board, in which case this does nothing, or I'm behind on the board, in which case this does even less than nothing. So like, I don't know. I feel like it's a ban card. It's purely a win more card. There might be some of the new cards that we've just talked about. There might be a couple of example situational board states with those where being able to trigger it again would be good. But it's 3 energy. I just can't imagine a turn where I want to waste 3 energy on this where I'm not already firmly winning the game. Like, I just can't imagine a board state. If someone can, let us know in the comments down below. But for me, I'm giving this. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5, not a 1, because I think you made a really good point, which is the best thing about this card is it's going to be one we keep checking in on every time there's a new release, and it's going to get better. But right now, I think it's like, yeah, I'm going to say it's a bad card. It's not a terrible card, but it's a bad card. It's in that 2 out of 5. All right, let's move on. Let's move on. Okay, now then, I'm excited about this one, Ecclesiarch. I'm excited.
Ooh, nice.
This one is also a stratagem. Grizzled Scarboy, 5 energy. The more fights an orc survives, the bigger, the meaner, and more covered in scars he becomes. Many war bosses boast a gnarled green hide as tough as any body of armor. Now, the ability of this says give armor 1 to your warlord. Should be full stop there. And +2 for each damaged enemy. So I have checked with Everguild on this because the way you read this, you can read this in multiple ways. But the way that this works is you can only ever get 1 armor from it. Yeah. So the amount of damaged enemies only affects how many times you get +2 health, if that makes sense. Yeah. So what do you think? What are your thoughts?
Honestly, I like the idea of armor on warlords. A lot of people might disagree with me and say that it's toxic, but I do like it. It kind of reminds me of the Imperial Fist Bastion from Horus Heresy Legions, where just you can build up an invincible Rogaldorn or something like that. It just never is gonna never get killed. Though Rogaldorn is a pretty crap warlord, but like I like the idea. I love this beefy, tanky control stuff. And even then, like in one of my card suggestions to EG, you remembered Kato Sicarius. I was suggesting that what they should do is they should make his ability give armor to the warlord, right? That at least for the current turn. And you know that I like the idea of armor on a warlord. The only question I really have with this is it gonna be worth the 5 energy? Is it gonna be too late to play this for 5 energy? Or not. We had a lot of cards similar to this in Heresy Legions. Like there were things that were called like what you would call it, like uh what was that? Forge Complex and there were cards that you just for 5 energy, like Death of Innocence, you would just buff your warlord with something and then it would start to give value, but you essentially skipped a turn to get that. This is very similar, but it does give 1 armor to your warlord, and you can carry 2 copies of it. This reminds me of something that the Custodes also had, the Eternal Vigilance. It was 5 energy, you could have 2 copies, and it would give your warlord at the start of the turn heal 1. So if you get 2 of those, you heal 2 every turn, which can be very scary, but nobody really played it. So
Yeah.
I think this can work for sure. If you play some very late game warlord for the orcs, this could be nice. You know what else seems like very interesting? Maybe somebody could play like a tank warlord and play 2 of these and the pain boys or something like that. So it does give you some options for different type of gameplay, which is obviously pretty good. I think 1 copy could work. 1 copy. 2 might be too much. But I'm definitely gonna build a deck with 2. Because I wanna use it. I wanna use it. I would say if this was 4 energy, it would be overpowered. That's the funny thing about these cards. If it would be 4, it would be an OP card. If it's 5, it's in a weird spot. If it's more, it's trash.
Yeah.
I don't know, like maybe 3, but no, like this is such a I
It's a
want to
tough one,
give it
isn't
a
it?
3.
It's a tough one, yeah.
I want to give it a 3,
Well,
but how can I give this a 3 where the legendary one also had a 3? It kind of doesn't work, but it's still something that I really want to play with.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do
Well,
you think,
I think
PJ?
you almost have to like review this on 2 levels, right? There's like how good is it, and how good from a card design perspective is it? Like from a card design, this is like 5 out of 5 for me. Like I absolutely love that they've done this, because what it does is it enables like a deep control archetype, and this is for everyone who's listened to our podcast on previous episodes, and we've talked about the meta and what we want to see from the game. We've talked about how this game is very tempo, very aggro based, and that what we want to be able to see is like new mechanics that enable like a deep control. And I think something like this does. You know, you imagine slamming this on Gazgul on turn 5, and if he's played on tempo, he's probably not lost much health. And then you're thinking, holy shit, we've got like all this health now to get through, and he's get 1 armor every single turn. And by the way, if he's got a second one, that's 2 armor. I think it allows you to get into deeper late games. Obviously, you've got Grook as well. So Grook with his thinning out and draw, and then obviously we can pull this off of the Prophet of the War. So there is definitely a possibility with Grook in particular of getting 2 of them out. The other cool thing is that it does synergize with multiple heal cards now, right? We've already talked about in this reveal, we've got a guy that can heal the Warlord as well as units. We've also got the Iron Gob, which heals. We've also got the Ada's Nails, which are very good cards for 2 energy, which are also healing. You know, Ada's Nails combined with this suddenly is way better, because +2 health is good, but +2 health on something that has armor 1 is like really good. So I actually think we've now got enough cards to really tinker with, especially in Orkz, where you've got things like hard removal, or when you've got Will of Gort, where you can reset the board. You know, like we're now in a position where we could really tinker with, can I get you into fatigue? You know, can I actually just play a more survival thing? And I don't know whether we can or can't, but all I'm saying is these are the types of cards we need to push that. So from a design, I think it's unique, and I'm really happy with it. Now, on the downsides, look at the +2 health bit. Now, if you think about it, I almost want you to have multiple units on the board that are damaged to get the health buff, but think about a board state where your opponent has multiple units on the board that are damaged. The last thing you want to do is waste 5 energy on a stratagem, right? Because we know that like that healing's doing nothing. You've got to change the board state. So it's kind of got this weird anti-synergy there. It's definitely armor that's the bigger deal. I would almost rather this cost 4 energy and it say, you know, give 1 health for each damaged unit, or even just give 2 health, something like that, because I think the armor is the point of this. And
it could for 4 energy, BJ, it could just be even 1 armor and it would still be good, because 4 energy is a good spot to play something like this.
Yeah, but I agree, at 5 energy it's got the potential to do something quite powerful. But it's a very... Do you know what it reminds me of? I literally just thought of this. It reminds me of Infinity Circuit out of Eldar. You know, because when you play Infinity Circuit and you get the 5 stones, but it does nothing, it's one of those cards where you go, where the hell am I going to find a turn in this game to just play 5 energy, do nothing, right? It kind of reminds me of that. But saying that, you know, playing Groot Control quite a lot, you do often find a turn where you can play the Iron Gob. I think the Iron Gob, though, lends itself to a more like mid-range control build, whereas this is like more of a really proper like late game, going for a really late game type of thing. And then there's a question of, can you play both? You know, could you have those 4 cards in a deck and Ada's Nails and just have an insane amount of health? I mean, what is that with Gazgul? What's that? So you got 40, 45, 50, 52, 54. And then potentially, whatever this gives you. I mean, you could be talking like a 60-odd health guy with 1 to 2 armor for a lot of that. So yeah, I'm excited, dude. This card really excites me. I'm not saying it's like total meta defining, but I'm excited. I think overall for now, my friend, I'm going to agree with you and give it a 3. I think that's a sensible spot, but it could absolutely go down. It could just be too much and not
Yeah.
actually. What's that Necron card that's 5 energy that makes everything cheap?
Implacable Conqueror.
But it smells a bit of that, where you get a bit excited and you think, oh, that's going to be amazing, and then you go, yeah, but the game's over 2 turns later and it didn't do anything. And I wonder if it's got a bit
Yeah,
of that.
I'm only giving it 3 because I'm excited for a card like this. But if I were to be objective, I think this is gonna go down because once again, it's too slow. The only character I remember in Horus Heresy Legions who could get away with playing stuff like that back in the day, now there's a few more things, was Magnus, because Magnus had 2 pools of a resource. He had energy and he had psychic energy. So he could like play this for 5 and with psychic energy like use the psychic power to clear the enemy board. So he could get away with it. But I don't know how we're gonna get away with this, but we'll see. Once again, I think if it was 4 energy and just gave it 1 armor, it would be very strong, maybe even a little too strong. So I wouldn't like start saying that they should do something like that. But yeah, we'll see, I guess.
Yeah, but like we've said, at least it's something different. It opens up some ideas for trying new decks and stuff. So I'm excited for that. So I believe we have covered every one of the new cards. So like we've talked about the cards individually. Overall, what do you think as an reinforcement drop? I see.
Finally, you got it.
I got it right at the end.
This is way better than the Tyranid one. I'm
Yeah.
gonna say that because
Yeah.
the Tyranid one was Tyranid one for me like had 2 good things, which was the Neuro Tyrant and the Neuroloid or whatever. Everything else was kind of trashy, except for maybe the other card with Vulnerable and Stun was also all right. No, actually, I'm being a little harsh on this. The Epic card was also good. For Venom Thrope. I think the Warlord is a little bit underwhelming, though once again, it's not my place to speak because I don't have him yet, even. I'm still trying to grind him somehow, so I hope I do get him so that I can actually make a video on him. Euro Tyrant was pretty good, but here, this is much better because no matter like what they added to the Tyranids in the previous one, the faction is still playing the same way. There's mostly Swarmlord running around with the combo, and there's a little more Neurothrope. There was nothing for Tervagon, no different type of gameplay, so it was not that good. This one, on the other hand, is way better because it introduces many different archetypes once again, and Warlord is very good, and the Legendary is also fine, and there's a lot of very interesting cards in there. So I would say overall, this is a very good reinforcement. I think I would expect no less from the next one. I wonder who's the next one though, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, obviously, I bought the Terra Vardagast bundle, so I've had all the cards. I think that there are some good cards in that expansion, but it's like you said, it doesn't really add new archetypes, and the ones that it does, like the Terra Vardagast himself, for example, currently doesn't have enough synergies. So that Warlord will get better, but right now it currently lacks synergies. Whereas, as you say, I think with the Orc one, I'm way more excited because what it's actually doing in my mind is opening up archetypes. So, for example, I think there's probably 3 or 4 different vehicle-esque builds that you could do with various levels of like aggro and control and different finishers and win cons in there, and probably it would work with Gazgul and the new guy, and Gruk, obviously. So, yeah, I kind of feel like this one's a lot more exciting. Like, if you're going to inject 11 cards, it opens up way more decks, and it feels like a really fun. Overall, I'd give, as a reinforcement drop, like out of, for 11 cards, I'd give the overall thing a 4 out of 5. I think this is a really good reinforcement drop. I'd probably say the Tyranid one was like somewhere in the 2 to 3 level for me, whereas like this one feels really fun, and I can't wait to. I mean, I know I'm biased because I'm a big Orc player and everything. I prefer their style, but when you've got such good cards already in the faction, this is kind of like the point of a reinforcement drop, right? It's not a whole new set. it's meant to inject life into existing cards, and I think that's exactly what this is gonna do.
Absolutely. That
Yeah.
is something that I want from the Necrons
Mm.
down the line as well, because Necrons are just like soulless, literally and figuratively. Because
Necrons,
like
yeah, they're struggling.
yeah, well, I mean, they're not only they're struggling, buff them and they're gonna be rage inducing, nerf them, and even if like you don't touch them, there's only two archetypes that you can play, and this is so shallow, where you can have it has so much potential, like
Mm.
the Ghost Arc type of build, and
Mm.
like there could be like Implacable Conqueror build, maybe if it draws a card or something. Implacable Conqueror, I think honestly should draw a card. I think that's like one thing that it needs, because it's just a wasted 5 energy once again. You do nothing, and yeah, nothing.
Mm.
And there's Tomb World, could be a Tomb World build, which already is. You could have a high cost card build like with monoliths and stuff. There could be so, and of course Frenzy. They need to drop something to just support those kinds of builds, because I'm tired. I'm already gonna throw up if I see another Emotech.
Okay.
Like
Well, before we induce your Necron depression any further, just to bring it back to the Orcs, who are going to have some new cards to play very soon, and we are going to tell you when these are coming out. But just before we give let people know when they can expect to get these cards, um, any initial things you're like really excited to kind of go and test? What are the first things you're going to do when
Warlord,
you get these?
Warlord.
Yeah.
I'm not, as soon as it comes out, I'm taking that Warlord and playing a aggro build, just bashing face,
Mhm.
to see just how that works, because that's something you need to figure out instantly.
Mm.
Because if it's good at bashing face, that's gonna be the ladder. Because
When you say aggro, are you thinking do you think the Green Horde works?
no,
Because he doesn't draw cards, does he? Is it like almost like the old? No, no,
no,
no.
just a face bashing aggro.
Shooter
We
boys, loads of low kind
yeah,
of. Mm.
we used to have something similar, as I said, in Legions. There was Kabanda, there was Angron, pre-rework Angron, like things that just went face and didn't care about anything else.
Mm.
They just had to have a couple of things to just remove your front line, Vanguard, and that was all. Like Angron, like every turn he was just attacking your face, doing nothing. Same with Kabanda. And Kabanda was very funny because Vanguard didn't stop him. Doesn't stop him. I mean, he has like unstoppable because he's got wings, so he can fly over the Vanguard and just bash your face. So yeah, those kinds of things. Like I do like the brainless aggro warlords. I have to admit. So that's what I'm gonna be testing first, and after that, I'm gonna be diving right into the vehicle synergies.
One thing I don't know if we said it in the breakdown of the huge chopper. Unlike, so you know the Iron Gob, that's the card that heals for 5 and gives concussive. That gives concussive until the start of your next turn. And that's a really big
Yeah,
detail, right? Whereas the huge chopper doesn't do that, right? So it's something that we should like point out, that you only get the concussive on your turn. So if they hit you back next turn, they're not concussed from that. That's actually a really big difference, isn't it? Like if you had concussive till the
of
start of your
course.
next turn, it'd be insane. But I do wonder. I do think people are going to get. I don't know. I'm keen to see the build, because I think like with this type of card, like if you just think you're going to play this in the first 3-4 turns and start hitting face, you're going to end up behind on board. And then what do you do? Do you have to control the board, or do you, because you're losing the race now, you know? So, but
The thing is just that the orcs don't really have a problem with that, because they have so many flanks and so many removals. What I would do, what I'm gonna do, I mean, with that warlord is very simple. I'm gonna throw in all the flanks and like removals, and I'm just gonna keep bashing face until the opponent is dead.
mm,
And every time they play something, I regain the tempo with one of those cards. So that's what I'm gonna be gunning for. I think 4 damage is just, it just reeks of insanity. So I'll see. I'll
mm,
see how it works.
sounds cool. Yeah, I think I'm going to really. I also want to try him out for sure. I think I'm going to really test two things. I really want to test is I want to build like 2 or 3 different vehicle builds. Like I really want to go back to that. As much as I don't like unstable, I really want to test a few of those. And I also really want to test that. I really want to try that deep control idea. You know, with the heal, getting, you know, really seeing what I heal. And I'm thinking with the heal, it's probably Gazgul and Gruk. They're the two that I want to try. I think Gruk's ability to draw into tools is just still as good as it's ever been. But
Of
I do
course.
like the 40 health on Gazgul. If you're talking about surviving and going deep into the game and having heal and armor, then starting with 40 health is a really big deal. Plus, also just being able to always put a grot on the board. Your enemy warlord's distracted, so that's another 2 health that's not coming off you. So there's something there about that. So I want to try that really deep control and see, have we finally got a build that could do it. Honestly, I'm not convinced we're quite there yet, but I'm really keen to kind of like at least give it a try, and especially because some of the aggro things have been tempered down a bit, right? Like we said, like the kind of proper killing nerfs and things like that. So we'll see. Okay, so we are releasing this, if you're watching this live on the premiere. This is out on Tuesday I'm not good with dates. Tuesday the 20th of February, you're probably watching this. This is when it's out. And the actual expansion itself is going to be playable and with you on 2 days from now, on Thursday the 22nd. We don't have a definite time, but the chances are that Everguild are going to be publishing news. They're obviously working with us on this. They're going to publicise this podcast, and they'll further give you updates in terms of times. But to play it safe, I will say, but by the close of play, by the end of Thursday, you will have access to the card. So if you wake up and turn this Warpforge on Friday morning, it's going to be all there for you, ready to go. And so not long to wait, which is really cool, isn't it? Like, we don't like this kind of give us the news and then wait weeks. We're going to have this in 2 days, and I don't know about you, but I feel so much more excited when it's like that. What do you think?
Absolutely, because this has gotten me much more excited than the Tyranid one. And yeah, I'm definitely gonna play a lot as soon as this is available. Because I haven't been playing lately in a while, was a little sick, so yeah, and I'm gonna play. I'm gonna release some content for sure this week because it's been lacking a lot for the last week. So I'm gonna be doing some Legions, I'm gonna be doing some Warpforge, so stay tuned.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait, and thank you so much for joining me and for talking about this. Thanks to everyone who's watching. Let us know in the comments what you think. What are your thoughts? What would you give this out of 5? What are the cards you're most excited about and that you want to go ahead and test first? This has been Gordrang's Gitstompas reinforcement drop review and reveal. We hope you like this format. If you've got any thoughts for future stuff and how we can improve, obviously, as always, we're always open to that. Always appreciate the like and subscribing to both mine and the Ecclesiarch channels. We are producing lots of content for the Everguild games, and we'll continue to do so. Thanks for all the love and support. We hope you enjoy the reinforcement, and until then, we'll see you in the next one.